Most people spend their entire lives wishing for more money, wishing for confidence, wishing for opportunity, wishing for a different future. But wishing changes nothing, because the universe does not respond to what you casually desire. It responds to what you are programmed to believe, and that changes everything, because it means the life you are living right now is not an accident. It is a reflection of your conditioning, your beliefs, your internal programming. The invisible code running beneath your actions every single day, and most people never see it. They think success is about talent, luck, timing, connections. But Bob Proctor spent decades teaching a truth that most people resist because it demands responsibility. Your subconscious programming determines your results, not your intentions, not your wishes, not your temporary motivation, your programming. The thoughts you repeat daily, the beliefs you emotionally accept, the identity you unconsciously reinforce. That is what creates your reality, because your mind is not neutral. It is always working, always recording, always conditioning, and whatever you repeatedly feed it, it accepts, whether it empowers you or destroys you. That is why two people can hear the same advice and create completely different lives. One applies it, the other doubts it. One expands, the other stays the same. One reprograms their identity, the other protects their limitations. And over time, their lives become evidence of their internal world, because the mind always moves toward what it has been conditioned to accept as normal. That is why most people never truly change. They want different results. While emotionally remaining attached to the same identity, they want success, without changing the internal program that keeps producing struggle. And that is impossible. Because you cannot outperform your self-image for long, you always return to what your subconscious believes you deserve. Always. That's why people sabotage opportunities, why they quit too early, why they settle for less, why they repeatedly recreate the same patterns in money, relationships, discipline, health, and purpose. It's not because they are incapable, it's because they are programmed. And until the programming changes, the results won't. This is why wishing is dangerous. Because wishing creates the illusion of movement without actual transformation. It gives people emotional comfort without demanding internal change. They watch motivational videos, feel inspired for a moment, then return to the exact same thinking, the exact same habits, the exact same environment. And then they wonder why nothing changes. But change was never supposed to begin outside. It begins inside, in the mind, in the paradigm, in the subconscious identity you carry into every decision you make. And if you truly want to win, you must stop focusing only on outcomes and start focusing on programming. Because winning is not an event. It is an internal standard, a mental condition, a state of being. And people who consistently win in life are not magically different from everyone else. They simply conditioned themselves differently. They programmed certainty instead of doubt, vision instead of fear, discipline instead of excuses. And over time, those internal patterns became external results. Napoleon Hill called this organized thought. Earl Nightingale called it the strangest secret. Marcus Aurelius understood it centuries ago when he wrote, "A man's life is what his thoughts make of it." And Bob Proctor dedicated his entire life to teaching people one powerful truth. If you want to change your life, you must change the conditioning of your mind, because your subconscious mind controls your behavior, and your behavior controls your results. So look honestly at your life, not emotionally, objectively. Look at your habits, your reactions, your standards, your fears, your excuses, your limitations. And ask yourself, what have I programmed myself to believe? Because whatever you repeatedly accept becomes your reality. If you constantly tell yourself life is difficult, your mind will search for proof. If you believe money is hard to earn, you will unconsciously resist wealth. If you believe success belongs to other people, you will sabotage your own expansion. And the terrifying part is, most of this happens unconsciously, automatically, without awareness. which means many people spend decades fighting external battles without realizing the real battle is internal. The battle is between the version of you that wants more and the programming that keeps pulling you back into familiarity. Because the subconscious mind loves what is familiar, even if familiar is painful, even if familiar is limiting, even if familiar is destroying your potential. Why? Because familiarity feels safe, predictable, known, and your mind will always try to protect what it knows. That is why growth feels uncomfortable. That is why change feels unnatural. That is why discipline feels difficult in the beginning. You are not just changing actions, you are confronting years of conditioning, years of repetition, years of internal programming. And that process requires awareness, because you cannot change a program you refuse to recognize. So you begin observing yourself, not judging. Observing. You notice the thoughts that repeat automatically, the fear that appears every time you try to grow, the internal voice that tells you to stay small, to stay safe, to wait, to hesitate. And for the first time, you stop blindly obeying it. You question it. You challenge it, because now you understand. A thought repeated long enough becomes a belief. A belief repeated long enough becomes identity, and identity repeated long enough becomes destiny. That is why programming matters, because whether consciously or unconsciously, you are always programming your future, through repetition, through emotion, through focus, through what you consistently feed your mind. So if you want a new life, you need a new internal environment. You must begin feeding your mind differently, protecting your focus differently, thinking differently, speaking differently, acting differently, not temporarily. Daily, because repetition is what creates programming, and repetition is what changes it. So instead of repeating fear, you repeat vision. Instead of repeating excuses, you repeat responsibility. Instead of reinforcing limitation, you reinforce possibility. And at first it feels unnatural, because your old identity will resist. It will try to pull you back into old thoughts, old emotions, old patterns, because your subconscious does not care if your life is extraordinary. It cares if your life is familiar. And if struggle has become familiar, your mind will unconsciously recreate it, until you interrupt the pattern, until you consciously choose something different. And that choice, repeated consistently, changes everything, because eventually, the new thinking becomes natural. The discipline becomes automatic, the confidence becomes stable, the vision becomes believable, and what once felt impossible starts feeling inevitable. That is the power of programming your mind. You are not forcing success, you are conditioning yourself to align with it. And alignment changes everything, because when your thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and actions move in the same direction, your life accelerates, your decisions sharpen, your focus intensifies, your standards rise, and opportunities begin appearing where you once saw obstacles. Not because the world changed, but because you did. And once you change internally, reality has no choice but to respond, because your outer world is always reflecting your inner world, always. So stop wishing, stop waiting, stop hoping your life changes while maintaining the same mental programming. Because wishing without reprogramming is self-deception. If you truly want to win, train your mind to think like someone who wins, act like someone who wins, persist like someone who wins, believe like someone who wins, because eventually, you become what you repeatedly condition yourself to be. And once that identity becomes real, winning is no longer something you chase. It becomes something you naturally create. Because once you begin programming your mind intentionally, you start to realize something most people never discover. Your mind is either your greatest weapon or your greatest prison. And whichever one it becomes depends entirely on what you repeatedly allow inside it. Because every environment programs you, every conversation influences you, every habit reinforces something, every repetition builds identity. That is why people can spend years surrounded by limitation and eventually begin calling it reality. Not because it is reality, but because repetition made it believable. And belief, when emotionally reinforced long enough, becomes automatic. That is why you must become extremely protective of your mental environment, because if you don't consciously program your mind, the world will do it for you. And the world is constantly programming fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of being judged, fear of taking risks, fear of thinking bigger than the people around you. And fear, repeated daily, creates hesitation. Hesitation creates inaction, and inaction creates regret. That is why so many people live far below their potential, not because they lack ability, but because they were conditioned to fear expansion, conditioned to play small, conditioned to stay realistic, and realistic has destroyed more dreams than failure ever could. Because realistic thinking rarely creates extraordinary lives. Vision does, belief does, programming does. The people who change the world are not the people who blindly accepted current reality. They are the people who internally created a new reality before the external world could see it. That was true for every visionary in history, every builder, every creator, every leader. Before the world believed in them, they believed in themselves. Before the results appeared externally, the identity existed internally. Because all creation happens twice. First in the mind, then in reality, and this is where most people lose. They wait for external proof before they believe, but winners believe before proof appears. That is what faith truly is, not blind hope, but disciplined internal certainty. The ability to hold a vision, steady, even when current circumstances contradict it. And that ability changes lives, because circumstances are temporary. Programming is powerful. If your subconscious mind accepts a vision deeply enough, your behavior begins aligning with it automatically. Your focus changes. Your decisions change. Your energy changes, and slowly. Your reality begins reorganizing itself around your new identity. That's why programming your mind is not positive thinking. It's strategic transformation. It's psychological conditioning. It's intentionally building an internal world so strong that external reality eventually has to catch up. And that process requires repetition, daily repetition, because the subconscious mind learns through emotional repetition, not logic, not information, repetition. That's why most people stay stuck. They repeat the same fears daily, the same excuses daily, the same limitations daily, and then wonder why nothing changes. But your mind is listening to everything you repeatedly say, especially the things you say emotionally. I'm not good enough. I never finish anything. People like me don't succeed. Money is difficult. Life is unfair. Those thoughts are not harmless, they are commands, and the subconscious mind obeys repeated commands. So if you constantly speak limitation, your mind will organize your behavior around limitation. But if you repeatedly reinforce strength, vision, discipline, possibility, your subconscious begins adapting to that standard instead. That is why language matters. The words you repeat become mental architecture, and mental architecture becomes destiny. So you stop speaking weakness. You stop reinforcing fear. You stop joking about failure. You stop identifying with limitation, because every time you repeat those patterns, you strengthen them. Instead, you begin reinforcing the identity you want to become, not arrogantly, not emotionally disconnected from reality, but intentionally, because you understand something powerful. The mind accepts what is repeated consistently with emotion. So you begin visualizing differently, thinking differently, speaking differently, acting differently, even before results appear, especially before results appear, because that is when reprogramming matters most. Anyone can believe after evidence exists, but transformation belongs to those who believe before the evidence arrives. And that belief changes behavior. You become more disciplined, more focused, more resilient, because now your actions are connected to identity, and identity-driven behavior is powerful, because when behavior becomes identity-based, consistency becomes easier. You no longer force yourself to act disciplined. You see yourself as disciplined. You no longer force yourself to persist. You see yourself as persistent. You no longer chase confidence. You embody confidence through repetition, and over time, that identity becomes real. Not fake, not performative, real because repetition eventually becomes programming, and programming eventually becomes personality. That is why your daily habits matter so much, because habits are not random actions. They are identity reinforcement systems. Every habit is voting for a version of yourself. Every repeated behavior is shaping your future self. So ask yourself honestly, what version of yourself are you reinforcing every day? The distracted version, the fearful version, the procrastinating version, or the focused version, the disciplined version, the unstoppable version, because your future is being programmed now, not someday, now. And that realization should wake something up inside you, because it means your life is not fixed, your identity is not permanent, your past is not your prison. You can reprogram yourself, you can rebuild yourself, you can create an entirely new internal world. But only if you become intentional, only if you stop drifting through life unconsciously, only if you stop allowing your environment to dictate your identity. Because most people are externally programmed, their emotions change with circumstances, their confidence changes with results, their focus changes with difficulty, and that creates instability. But people who consciously program themselves operate differently. They remain focused when circumstances become chaotic. They remain disciplined when motivation disappears. They remain aligned when the world becomes uncertain, because their identity is internal, not circumstantial, and that is real power. Not controlling the world, controlling yourself within the world. Because when you control your focus, you control your direction. When you control your direction, you control your actions. And when you control your actions consistently enough, you control your destiny. That is why wishing is weak, but programming is powerful. Wishing waits. Programming creates. Wishing hopes. Programming builds. Wishing dreams about change. Programming becomes change. And once you understand that distinction, you can never go back to passive living again, because now you know the truth. The mind is not something to casually manage. It is the force creating your reality. And if you learn to direct it intentionally, there is almost nothing you cannot become. And the moment you fully understand that, the moment you stop treating your mind casually and begin treating it like the operating system of your entire life, your standards begin to rise. Because now you realize every thought has consequences, every repeated emotion has consequences, every habit has consequences, not just temporarily, but permanently. Because repetition builds identity, and identity builds destiny. That means the life you live tomorrow is being programmed by the thoughts you tolerate today. So you become more aware, more intentional, more disciplined with your inner world. You stop feeding your mind garbage and expecting greatness. You stop surrounding yourself with negativity while hoping for confidence. You stop repeating self-doubt while wishing for success. Because now you understand something most people ignore. You cannot plant fear and expect fulfillment. You cannot rehearse limitation and expect expansion. You cannot emotionally identify with struggle and expect abundance. The subconscious mind responds to emotional repetition. And whatever you repeatedly feel, you eventually become. That is why emotional control matters so much, because emotions are not just reactions, they are reinforcements. Every time you emotionally react the same way, you strengthen the pattern, strengthen the identity, strengthen the programming. So if every challenge immediately creates fear, you program fear. If every setback creates self-doubt, you program insecurity. If every obstacle convinces you to quit, you program weakness. But if you respond differently, everything changes. If difficulty creates focus instead of panic, you program resilience. If setbacks create learning instead of defeat, you program growth. If pressure creates discipline instead of excuses, you program strength. And strength, repeated consistently, transforms people. Because eventually, your reactions stop being emotional accidents. They become intentional responses. And intentional responses create powerful lives. This is why high-level people think differently. Not because they never feel fear, but because they refuse to let fear control identity. They feel uncertainty and move anyway. They feel discomfort and continue anyway. They feel resistance and stay aligned anyway. Because they understand something deeply. The mind must be trained. Not occasionally, daily. Like an athlete trains the body. Like a warrior sharpens a weapon. Because an untrained mind becomes dangerous. It becomes reactive, weak, easily influenced, easily distracted. And distraction is one of the greatest threats to human potential. Because distraction destroys focus, and focus determines power. Where your attention goes, your energy follows, and where your energy goes repeatedly, your life follows. That is why scattered people create scattered results. Distracted people create inconsistent lives. Reactive people remain trapped in cycles because their mind is constantly being controlled by external stimulation, notifications, opinions, fear, comparison, noise, and slowly, they lose connection with themselves, with vision, with purpose, with direction. That is why silence matters, reflection matters, stillness matters. Because when the noise disappears, you finally hear your own thoughts clearly. You finally see your patterns honestly. You finally recognize the programming running beneath your life. And awareness creates the possibility of transformation. Without awareness, nothing changes. People repeat the same emotional cycles for decades because they never pause long enough to observe themselves consciously. But you are different now. Now you are watching your mind, watching your reactions, watching your patterns. And that awareness gives you power, because once a pattern becomes visible, it becomes changeable. And now, you begin intentionally replacing old programming, not through fantasy. Through repetition, through disciplined mental conditioning, you begin visualizing success consistently, not as entertainment, but as training. You rehearse confidence internally. You rehearse discipline internally. You rehearse persistence internally. Because the subconscious mind does not distinguish strongly between imagined experience and repeated emotional experience. That's why visualization matters. Athletes use it. Leaders use it. Elite performers throughout history have used it. Because mental rehearsal conditions behavior. It familiarizes the mind with higher standards, and familiarity reduces resistance. So instead of constantly rehearsing failure, you rehearse success. Instead of imagining worst-case scenarios, you train your mind to focus on possibility, not blindly, not irrationally, strategically. Because what you repeatedly imagine with emotion, your subconscious gradually accepts as reality. And once the subconscious accepts it, behavior changes naturally. You start acting differently without forcing it. You begin expecting more from yourself automatically. Your standards rise subconsciously. And high standards change everything, because standards determine behavior. Behavior determines results. Results reinforce identity, and identity shapes destiny. That is the cycle. So if you want to transform your future, raise your internal standards first, not publicly internally. Raise what you tolerate from yourself. Raise what you expect from yourself. Raise the level at which you think, speak, act, because people who consistently win in life are not necessarily more talented than everyone else, but they are mentally conditioned for higher standards. They refuse to emotionally live at a low level, and eventually, reality reflects that refusal. Because life responds to identity always, so stop asking whether you are capable. Start asking what you are. Repeatedly conditioning yourself to become, because capability grows through conditioning. Confidence grows through conditioning. Discipline grows through conditioning. Everything grows through repetition, and once you truly understand that, you stop looking for quick motivation. You stop chasing emotional highs. You stop searching for magical breakthroughs, because you realize transformation is built daily, quietly, consistently through mental programming, through intentional repetition, through refusing to feed the old identity any longer, and eventually, the old version of you weakens, the fearful version, the insecure version, the distracted version because what is not reinforced fades and what is reinforced expands. So reinforce greatness, reinforce focus, reinforce discipline, reinforce belief until the new identity becomes stronger than the old one. Because once that happens, winning stops feeling distant. It starts feeling natural. And when success becomes emotionally natural, your life changes permanently. And that permanence, that internal shift, is the moment everything truly changes. Because now you no longer wake up hoping to feel motivated. You wake up programmed for movement, programmed for discipline, programmed for focus. And there is a massive difference between relying on emotion and relying on conditioning. Emotion is unstable, conditioning is dependable. Emotion changes with circumstances, conditioning remains consistent despite circumstances. That is why people who only depend on motivation eventually stop. But people who train their minds keep moving even when they don't feel like it. And that is where greatness is built. Not in moments of excitement, but in moments of resistance. The days when your mind wants comfort, but you choose growth. The moments when fear appears, but you move anyway. The situations where quitting feels easier, but you continue anyway. Because every time you continue despite resistance, you strengthen your new identity. You teach your subconscious something powerful. We do not stop, and eventually, that becomes automatic. Persistence becomes natural. Discipline becomes natural. Execution becomes natural. Because repetition transformed effort into identity, and identity is the real secret behind transformation. Not hacks, not shortcuts, not temporary inspiration, identity. Because once your identity changes, everything else follows. Your standards rise automatically. Your behavior improves automatically. Your decisions sharpen automatically. Because now, your actions are aligned with who you believe you are, and alignment creates power, real power, the kind that changes lives quietly before the world ever notices. Because the truth is, most breakthroughs happen invisibly first, internally, in silence, long before external success appears. That's why so many people quit too early. They expect visible evidence immediately. They expect instant validation. But internal transformation always happens before external manifestation. Always. The roots grow before the tree appears, and people who understand this remain patient, focused, committed, because they know the invisible work is creating visible results. Even if reality hasn't caught up yet, that is, faith, not blind belief, disciplined certainty, the ability to continue planting seeds even before seeing the harvest. And eventually, the harvest comes because the subconscious mind cannot endlessly repeat aligned behavior without creating results. It's impossible. Focused thinking changes actions. Focused actions change habits. Focused habits change identity, and identity changes reality. That is the process. Simple but not easy, because the hardest part is not learning new information. The hardest part is abandoning old identity, letting go of the version of you that became emotionally attached to struggle, to excuses, to fear, to comfort. Because comfort can become addictive, and addiction to comfort destroys potential. It convinces people to stay where they are while slowly draining who they could become. That is why growth requires courage, not because success is impossible, but because expansion demands the death of familiarity. And most people unconsciously protect familiarity more than they protect their future, but not you anymore. Now you understand the game. Now you see the invisible patterns controlling behavior. Now you recognize that your thoughts are not harmless. They are instructions, commands, programming. And from this point forward, you stop programming weakness. You stop rehearsing failure mentally. You stop feeding doubt emotionally, because you finally understand the mind is always listening, always adapting, always becoming. So you become intentional about what you repeat. You repeat vision until it becomes natural. You repeat discipline until it becomes automatic. You repeat confidence until it becomes identity. You repeat persistence until quitting no longer feels emotionally available. And over time, a completely different version of you emerges. A stronger version, a calmer version, a more focused version, a version no longer controlled by temporary Emotions are version directed by purpose, and purpose changes everything. Because purpose gives suffering meaning, purpose gives discipline direction, purpose gives pain value. Without purpose, people quit the moment things become uncomfortable. But with purpose, people endure, grow, expand, because they understand what they are building internally. And what you are building internally right now is far more valuable than temporary motivation. You are building mental architecture, a psychological foundation strong enough to sustain success, because success without internal stability eventually collapses. That's why so many people achieve things externally, but remain broken internally. They changed circumstances without changing programming. But you are doing something different. You are rebuilding from the inside out. And that kind of transformation lasts, because now you are no longer waiting to become successful. You are conditioning yourself to operate as someone successful already would. You think differently, move differently, respond differently, and eventually, reality reflects that difference. Not because life became easier, but because you became stronger, more aligned, more intentional. And intentional people create powerful lives because they stop living by accident. They stop drifting emotionally through circumstances. They stop waiting for permission to become who they were meant to be. They decide. And decision is where power begins. A real decision changes behavior. Real decision changes standards. A real decision changes identity. So decide now, not emotionally, not temporarily, permanently. Decide that you will no longer program yourself for limitation. No longer rehearse fear. No longer strengthen weakness through repetition. Decide that from this point forward, your mind becomes an environment for growth, for expansion, for discipline, for belief, for victory. Because victory is not random, it is conditioned. And once you understand how conditioning works, you stop seeing success as luck. You start seeing it as mental training, daily, intentional, focused, and eventually unstoppable. So stop wishing, stop hoping your life changes while your mind remains the same. Stop waiting for external circumstances to magically transform your future, because your future is not created externally first. It is created internally, in thought, in belief, in repetition, in identity. And if you are willing to program your mind consistently enough, there is almost no limit to what you can become, because the greatest force shaping your reality has never been outside of you. It has always been within you, your thoughts, your beliefs, your conditioning, your mind, and now you finally know how to use it. If this message changed the way you think, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And right now, another video is appearing on your screen. Watch it, because this transformation is only beginning.